I think we are probably in the most exciting phase in the era of mobility across the world, which is actually influenced not only just by technology, but also by climate factors, also by factors about what is the view towards mobility, the change of approach towards mobility by the new generation coming up as well.
How policies of government policies in the US, EU, China and India, how do they compare, and which one would you say is primed for growth?
John, the issue is, frankly, people are not yet aware where are the charges. Are those charges relevant for me? Are the charges working? Will it work when I go there? You would see that the luxury segment in India is just about 1% of the industry. That are 4.3 million passenger vehicle, ballpark, you're talking about 45,000 odd cars in the luxury segment.
Hello and welcome to The Interface, the Hindus podcast to make sense of the accelerating pace of change underpinned by technology. I'm your host, John Xavier. India's electric vehicle market is growing, fueled by the push for sustainability, backed by government incentives and the rise of affordable EV options. In today's episode, we will take a tour into this market to understand EV manufacturing, the tech on wheels, challenges in infrastructure, charging networks, and also explore how established automakers are shaping the future of mobility. Joining me to discuss how the future of mobility is unfolding is Gaurav Gupta, Chief Growth Officer at MG Motor India.
How are you on?
Gaurav, glad to have you on the platform.
Pleasure, and thank you so much.
So, Gaurav, you've been in the auto sector for close to 3 decades. You've seen the in and out. What can you tell us broadly about the EV market globally and also specifically in India?
Well, thanks. I think when you say 3 decades, it makes you feel very old. But on a different note, I think we are probably in the most exciting phase in the era of mobility across the world, which is actually influenced not only just by technology, but also by climate factors, also by factors about what is the view towards mobility, the change of approach towards mobility by the new generation coming up as well. And this entire thing is driving to the most exciting era ever, I would say that. And plus the pace also is very, very, very fast. Now, obviously, we're talking about electric vehicles largely today, but I would also say that the journey that we have come from the earlier ICE vehicles that are still quite prevalent the world over, I think EVs are the rightful destination, in my opinion. And when we look at the entire way, the whole thing is blending towards it. While there will be a large play, an existing play rather, of other technology to exist also. So whether you have plugins, as I would say, as a derivative of EV, you also will have in the future fuel cells as well. But as we speak today, the dominant area of direction is going to be led by electric vehicles worldwide. When I say that, yes, there have been various percentages and growth rates across the world, whether it's the US, Europe, China, or even India per se. And we can talk about that as well when we go today.
Right. So you speak about, so the underlying theme largely seems to be around sustainability. And within that, we have the hybrid, we have the EVs, and you're talking about the fuel cells.
Yeah.
And EV seems to be the immediate area to focus on.
Well, I would say good progress made in the area of EV. Clear line of sight as to where we are heading, evolving as well in terms of technology, in terms of consumer acceptance, in terms of different models coming into picture. So, I think the current era, and for some time to come, would actually belong to the electric vehicles.
Right. And I want to kind of zoom in on India. Mm-hmm. The Indian market is quite unique in terms of climatic condition, weather patterns and everything. How does manufacturing an EV look in India? What are some of the areas in which MG, for instance, focuses on? How do you build out a manufacturing facility, and how do you make sure that you are able to supply to the demand in the country?
I think it's a very interesting question. See, let's take a step back before we get there. I think largely we all understand that the dominant area as we go forward should be and would be electric vehicles for our industry. Now, when we are there, and frankly, for some time, our technology within the home country has yet to take the lead. But the initiative is done by the government of India. to really promote various PLIs across, whether it is for the OEMs in terms of manufacturing electric vehicles, whether it is for the component manufacturers, whether it is for advanced cell chemistry investments. All of these put together is really, helping in propulsion going forward towards the adoption of electric vehicles from a ecosystem perspective. Then you have the OEMs taking the lead forward now, wherein at one point in time, you are looking at technology coming inward into the country. But then now the progress is also moving forward for the domestic players, whether it's OEMs or component manufacturers, who are working to build this inherently and indigenously within the country also. So you learn, you borrow, you bring in, you improve it, improvise it, and take it further. The next era coming up as we speak is that how do you take it one notch higher as a homegrown technology itself? This is where the role of academia comes into picture. Because, so far it has not been a mainstream course across our universities and colleges. And that's an area where I think a lot of work needs to be done now. Because frankly, research and development, academia plays a huge role in making a country take the next leap forward in terms of technology research, technology adaptation, and then obviously the execution part of it. The industrialization part of it comes into the picture when you get players like OEMs and manufacturers coming into the picture. And then the third part of this would be to create an awareness overall that, how does an EV impact and help us going forward? Sustainability, environment, cost of ownership, and for our country also, to retain and to reduce the oil pool deficit. And then whatever we have in terms of the ores, etc., we're using it within the country. And then you have a full cyclical approach. So you you kind of mine it, you develop it, you use it, and then you recycle it. And there's a full cycle which comes into picture. So that is at an overall, if you ask me, from an overall perspective towards EV. But when you go forward to setting up your manufacturing facility, obviously you will look at, what kind of vehicles are you going to be looking at from a market perspective, depending on every OEM's choice or focus, and they're also their appetite in terms of the investments also, and obviously the scale at which they want to grow. And based on that, you look at the technology that's available to you homegrown, or you want to have a collaboration, or you want to look at, if you are part of a larger venture like us, for example, what's available out there within our expanded family, and you bring that into the country, because that will really help our country to move forward. And then you will help with your component suppliers, your supply chain, to get them to look at it from a continuous supply perspective. You look at balancing between domestic and import. You look at what do you want to localize, in what time frame, how does the PLI come into picture for your EV investments. All of this becomes kind of an overall business case that gets into execution. Fundamental to that would be, the company starts about, we are going to work towards sustainable mobility solutions. We are going to be working on helping our local players and local comp suppliers take the next leap. We are going to be making sure that we are giving the consumers the right vehicles. And in the case of EV, John, frankly, I think the era starts now, and I would love to talk about that, because I think this is the first time now in India we are seeing real skateboard EVs. Because so far, including our ZSEV, including some of the other players, they all have been ICE into EV. So our Indian consumers have not really indulged and enjoyed and experienced true skateboard EVs. And I would love to explain that also.
Sure. So on the manufacturing side itself, so MG started off with IC in India, and then gradually it's kind of ramping up and changing the portfolio, moving into EVs.
A little bit of correction there. Yeah. Our first product in 2019 June was Hector, and 2019 December itself, we unveiled the ZS EV for India. So in just about 7 months, our product was a pure ZS EV, electric engine SUV. And many people did question us, then why should your second car be an EV? But keep in mind, when we unveiled the car in 2019 December, it meant that we were working on that for almost 18 months prior to that.
Right.
So from the very beginning, we knew that we have to go and we need to be in the EV product portfolio for our consumers in India.
Right.
Today, almost 35% of our share of business comes from EV.
Right, exactly. So how different is this manufacturing setup looking like? For instance, do you have a separate production line for the EV?
You have to do that. So typically
and also, could you also explain about the supplier ecosystem? Yeah. Because the whole parts and everything changes.
So, when you are, and this is an evolution, this is an evolving space, I would say, as we go along, for at least I would take for our journey. So in a manufacturing facility, you decide whether what would be your kind of investments and what would be your localization plans, depending on what's available homegrown, what can be made into the country based on collaboration, either at an OEM level or at a supplier partner level, and what remains to be brought in because of the economic reasons as well, right? So you kind of look at all three kind of buckets, and that's what you work towards. In our case, for example, as of now, and you'll be surprised actually, for our products now, like let's say for the example, the Windsor, all right, now we actually are assembling the battery within our factory. We are painting the entire vehicle in our factory. We are localizing a large part of the car as we speak. And obviously these localization levels, they increase over a period of time. So for example, in the case of a ZSEV, sheet metal seats, etc., lamps, all of them are localized, right? Likewise for the Comet, the battery is locally sourced and locally assembled. So every company who will be working towards this area will go through an evolution phase or evolving phase, I would say, based on their own strengths that they have in the ecosystem, with their supplier network and their ability to bring whatever they want to do in-house, localize, and take it forward. In fact, I would love to say that if you see our factory, we have, of course, you'll have a line for our ICE vehicles, and then we also have a separate line for our EV vehicles. But obviously, the paint shop that we have is common across the car lines, because that's where paint shops are best actually utilized in terms of the investments done.
So you had experience working across geography on automotives. So could you kind of compare and contrast, how policies of government policies in the US, EU, China, and India, how do they compare, and which one would you say is primed for growth?
I think every country when they started adopting to EVs over the last decade went through their learning curve, and in some countries it was a very rapid and fast learning curve. Whereas in some, it was more about, let's see how it plays out. So, for example, in the US, where the penetration is still very low at this point in time, for example, China is 50% right now. US is still about hovering at about 10%. It's a function of what products are being brought in, right? And then what kind of direction or what kind of clear clarity of policy is there by the government of the respective country. I would take an example where in China, for example, it was a very clear direction that we have to look at utilizing the resources that we have in the country. We must look at, moving towards a sustainable solution for mobility. So they started by telling about, let's make an EV first. Let's make a battery first. Then and there were incentives for that. And then it moved towards, we would like to have a higher range. Now we would like to have a much more higher range. So from just starting and then looking at, 200 kilometers, 300 kilometers, then the range became a kind of, you could say, a basic platform. It was about how much more of the range, how much more of the state of health of the battery, how much more in terms of what can be now looking at it, whether you're looking at swapping, etc. So the whole era is moving towards that area. We in India, I would say, are very progressive. I would appreciate that, because the reason is we've got the PLIs in place to help manufacturing, to help development of the component sector, the entire ecosystem, the charging infrastructure, the most recent announcement by the Prime Minister as well. So you are looking at making sure that the ecosystem, the stakeholders, everyone's skin in the game comes into picture. I personally believe that, frankly, a lot of the role play now has to be with the OEMs, because I think as OEMs, we all owe it by bringing in good products which are really skateboard EVs for people to enjoy that, right? Secondly, in terms of benefits, many states are already providing, zero RTO benefits, so registration, tax, etc. But they're changing as we speak. So there can be an era where there's uniformity in that area. Third is the area like I talked about, can the government work towards academia doing more and more R&D space? So I would say every country has got its own national interest coming into picture. Some do a quick course correction, but ultimately what helps the industry is always about how a government really has a clarity of policy and maintains that policy for a sustained period of time, so that every stakeholder is able to align with that and making sure that that gets delivered to the rightful objective.
Right. So you also mentioned about the government policies, particularly in India, where states have slightly different policy in terms of the RTOs, how much of a discount they give car vehicles. So how do states compare? Do you see that, there are some states that are definitely far ahead and others are...
Absolutely, John. In fact, we have seen that states like, for example, Delhi has been very progressive. the southern states of India, whether it is Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Kerala, they've been progressive. In some states, they have got zero RTO, and some they've got a reduced RTO, Maharashtra, etc. So UP as well. So I think every state, there were some early adopters, I would say. Typically, the southern states had been early adopters towards moving towards EV. The other states are catching up. Some of the states have yet to come onto the bandwagon of supporting EV completely. This area, I would feel that is an area where it will really help if there is a clear alignment or agreement to say let's drive this mission forward. So something like
thing across India.
Something like we quote internally, and that's where Rajiv internally also recommends that is this like a mutual fund sahiye kind of a campaign or a mission where everybody gets aligned and you get billions of rupees every month for the mutual funds to take care of, for people to look at investment, and of course with the safety net. Similarly, if the entire momentum comes in also from a time to say shift to an EV, or is EV is the best approach, whatever it may be, and all the stakeholders get aligned and do their bit, it'll be a phenomenal move.
Right.
The OEMs come together, the respective
government
agencies come together, and we say let's move towards this direction.
Right. So the other interesting part, whenever people speak about EVs, or other two interesting parts, is the one we have, because this is the charging network, and the second is the range anxiety. So in both of these two factors, where does India stand? Because the range is still kind of trying to edge out into the 250 range, but a lot of on-road testing doesn't give you beyond that. But there is scope for improvement. At the same time, the charging network, though there's a lot of promise, a lot of it is still not visible on the ground.
So, let me say there's a lot of work being done in the area of chargers. When we started bringing and when we brought in the first ZS EV in the country, we actually worked with many of the players in the ecosystem to really help them understand manufacturing of charging. What are the kind of technologies which impact the rate of charging, the health of charging, and likewise. Today, I think we're fairly, out there in terms of hardware manufacturers for chargers. We're also pretty much there with the number of players who want to come and play out their role as charge point operators, which means the players who really install a charger for public usage, and they have an entire software which allows people to come and charge their car and of course pay up and so on and so forth. Having said so, you are right in the perspective that what your perception is about where the charger is. I think that's what we always mention, that if there was a person who wants to buy an EV and he talks to a friend, his first or her first reaction would be, where are the chargers? But you'd be surprised that in India, as we speak, we actually have almost 12,000 plus public chargers and growing rapidly. And there's a lot of work happening by the oil companies, whether it is, let's say, for example, BPCL, IOCL, HPCL, likewise. But you also have private players who are there as well. So there are many players who come in. So third is on OEMs like MG. We also have taken a charge of putting 1,000 charges in 1,000 days under our Mission MG charge perspective. So the charges are there. John, the issue is, frankly, people are not yet aware, where are the charges? Are those charges relevant for me? Are the charges working? Will it work when I go there? Can I book it? Because if I think the charger is there and I land up there and someone else is using it, then my entire journey plan is impacted. And how has been the experience of some of the earlier users of that charger? Just like a rating, is it 2, 3, 4 star, etc. So that gives people confidence, right? Although 80% plus, 85% plus customers worldwide and in India actually charge their entire need for the vehicle within their home itself, whether it's through a normal 3.3 kilowatt, like a power plug kind of a charger, or with an AC 7.4 kind of kilowatt. And it's fairly comfortable because, you don't have the issue of going to a gas station or a petrol pump like for ICE vehicle. Your point about a Zomato, so let me surprise you, and probably we should do a better job in promoting this, was that on the 6th of August this year itself at MG, at the Bharat Mandapam venue in Delhi, we brought into the market the first mega aggregator of sorts called eHub, and the eHub by MG, wherein you actually have an access to 80%, approximately 80% of the public chargers in India. And by doing that, consumers don't have to download the 25, 30 individual charge point operators app on their mobiles.
Right.
That one app itself, because our teams have collaborated with the various charge point operators, so that one app itself, you are able to see the chargers around you. You would be able to also do a route planning. So if you want to go from, let's say, I want to go from Chennai to Kochi, for example.
That's the optimal.
We know Chennai to Vijayawada, for example, or Bangalore, or wherever, you actually can plan the entire route. Where are the charges there? What actually suits my requirement basis my vehicle? And it is not limited to MG only. This is actually a work that the team has done to encourage people, to give them the confidence that, like you said, a Zomato of chargers, this actually is a Zomato or Swiggy of chargers in the country. And that gives people a lot of confidence that, hey, listen, my fear or my concern to a large extent is actually being addressed with this app. And as we speak, in less than about just a month, there are more than 10,000 users of the app already who have downloaded it. They're trying to do their own routing, etc. And then they're making payments through this. So to us, it's like a movement. And I talk about some of the other barriers that have been there also currently in the EV space in India, and how we all should work towards addressing them as we go along.
Sure, absolutely. So when you mentioned about 80% in there and the 20% that you're not able to...
20% is work in progress.
Right.
So because see, all this requires a lot of integration of apps.
Right.
It requires a lot of back-end, updates, back-end, making sure the firewalls are there. There are multiple chargers there, so we don't want to have cannibalization of A versus B. So all of that takes time. So as of now, in a very short time, we've got 80% already on board. More to follow as we go along.
Right. So and the kind of follow-up that immediately comes to mind is about, the data that goes into these ecosystems, right? Mm-hmm. So how are we developing privacy? How are we building privacy into it? And what sort of information goes?
So all of these, let me give you a very, very flat answer on that. Everything that all this is happening is all aligned with data privacy, all aligned with data protection. So to an outsider, you could say, hey, what about the data? But it's actually an individual contract. When you are looking at an app, you have your direct interface, like with Zomato, for example, or Swiggy, right? You are making payments to the restaurants, right? How does it go through? We all have the confidence about the security. So similarly, in this area also. So these kind of things already, I will assure you that these are all tested, tried, and we use a pretty stringent approach of, continuously verifications of, whether it is being hit by ABC or XYZ or whatever it is.
Right. So now I want to dive into MG's idea of, the select models coming in. You're talking about...
I want to, if you don't mind, because, you got me talking on the EV space. So if you don't mind, I probably want to talk a little bit more on there. Yeah. And for our viewers also. So what are the enablers and what are the hurdles, right? I was saying, what can be the enablers? So first one, John, actually has been good quality products in India. We don't have so far, and I would not say because I'm in love with MG Windsor, but frankly, this probably will be the first real skateboard EV in the country of that size, space, which really is a car that people will enjoy. It's an A segment pricing, B segment size, and C segment space because you have the entire legroom inside. The wheelbase is stretchable completely, right? This is one. So I think as more and more players bring in more EVs, which are real EVs, I think our consumers will get a lot of confidence. Now, why do I say that? If I look at the current offerings in the marketplace, and I fully admire and respect all the offerings, but we've gone through a cycle, right? We've gone through a generation. So they are mostly Gen 1, Gen 2, at best kind of an EV, where the battery efficiencies have been at different levels, and this all have been evolving. So it has impacted residual value to some extent, it has impacted the confidence, it's impacted ABC areas. Now with this real EVs coming into the picture, where the efficiencies of the batteries are really, really world standard, right? You've got cars which people will enjoy a lot. Automatic transmission, space, technology, all put in together. Connected cars is a great place because EVs help connectivity to evolve, right? That will give consumers and every other player in the market confidence for EVs. And this is also applicable, like in the US, for example. US is a truck market, pickup truck market, where very few players are able to offer those products. So as they're working on them, you will see the growth in that country also. And likewise, in China, for example, it's 50% is new energy vehicles, plug-ins and electric vehicles. So that's one thing on the product side. The second has been, and this is again, I was talking about the battery, right? There were concerns about what's going to be the battery life, etc. The battery life actually far exceeds the car life because the 2,500 ampere cycles typically on an average, and with whatever range, depending on the battery size, outlives the vehicle driving ability, right? So I think as people are going to see these new, more efficient battery management systems, better batteries, good capacity, and really, really dense in terms of power delivery, people will get more and more confidence, right? The second we talked about is about the charging infrastructure, which is what I think I just talked about. By getting more players to bring in like aggregator platforms will really give people the confidence.
Right.
The third is the acquisition price, which is about, people have always felt that EVs are expensive. Running cost is fantastic. It's like less than ₹1 approximately, or ₹1 in case of a higher capacity car. But buying the EV has been expensive so far. The acquisition price has been expensive because the battery has been loaded into the car. Now, the battery prices are also coming down worldwide with the lowering of lithium prices. But one good factor is that how can we really look at making people think that the battery is equal to energy or fuel? So just the way you are looking at ICE cars and you look at petrol or gasoline or diesel in your car, similarly, the battery should be considered to be a fuel. So what we have done this time with battery as a service, which is the first time in India and first time actually in, you could say globally per se, is that where you are saying you can own the car at a rupees X and you can rent the battery. So in this case, we're saying you can buy the car, or let's say 9.9 lakhs, the Windsor, and rent the battery at 3.5 rupees a kilometer based on various packages that we have got, some minimum kilometers or zero mileage kilometers and so on and so forth, which then allows you not to be straddled with the entire battery cost being incurred to be paid up by you. You are just using it the way you would put for your diesel and petrol, your rental for your battery. So it really gives you the biggest advantage where your acquisition price comes down. In a finance world, you could say your capex comes down and you're putting it towards OPEX, which is what you would use. To give you a quick maths, if I was to buy a 10 lakh rupee car, which is let's say an ICE vehicle, you'll probably get a small or a compact SUV, which will be a manual transmission. You do about 50 kilometers a day, which is about 1,500 kilometers a month. Ballpark, let's say 12 kilometers to a liter of fuel efficiency. And just taking a general guess, about 120 odd liters of fuel is required. Multiply that by ₹100, ballpark, 12,000 rupees plus is your cost, plus maintenance, etc. Here we are saying similar kind of category, 3.5 rupees is a battery rental, add about ₹1 for charging, although we are giving public charging completely free for a year, add that ₹1, so 4.5 rupees into 1,500, ballpark of 6,500 rupees. So you're literally paying half per month on your usage cost. And the 10 lakh rupees that you're paying, the EMI is the same on the ICE and the EV. And after 3 years, we're saying, you actually can give back the car based on the buyback program that we have. And you actually are, a very happy camper because you're saying, I've used the car up to my liking. I'm getting the residual value as my buyback program, which you sign up for. And you have the best of both worlds. So this is really a path-breaking, I would say, first time in India to say, use battery as a fuel on a monthly basis rather than get straddled with the entire battery cost upfront.
Right. So you're basically trying to get into the consumer mind saying that this is an alternative to your fuel vehicle.
And that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be.
Right. And if somebody wants to own the vehicle with the battery,
you can do that also. So we have choices. You can say, I want to buy the full battery, guys. There's an option available. Or I'm going to say, I want to buy the car with a minimum kilometer because I know I'll drive about 18,000 kilometers in a year, which is 1,005 kilometers per month. Or somebody would say, I want to have a program where I can accelerate my payment. So we have all the choices available. Plus, when you sell the car, it's very simple. You say that I bought the car for 10 lakhs, but I only rented the battery. So tomorrow, if you say, I want to give the car back, the choice is available to you also. The financier with whom we are partnered, the 4 financiers, they can take the car back, look at the residual value, give you back for the 10 lakh rupees, and the battery will be adjusted in the overall pricing. If you sell the car to a customer, to your friend, for example, They can choose to continue the rental program or look at settling it out. So what flexibility is there quite a bit. So that the entire option is available.
That's great. Let's quickly get into the future of mobility and also looking through the lens of
Talking about MG Select.
How is your portfolio going to look like? And also, can you give a glimpse into what we can expect from EVs and hybrids in the coming years?
Very, very interesting. See, when we looked at the auto industry, and we still look at obviously on a regular basis, you would see that the luxury segment in India is just about 1% of the industry. So at a 4.3 million passenger vehicle ballpark, you're talking about 45,000 odd cars in the luxury segment. And then you see the rising Indian affluency, you see the emerging Indian choice, the new age India's affinity by going towards premiumization, stepping up. I mean, many ways after COVID, the YOLO, the you only live once kind of mindset driving this consumption, all of that makes us feel, and after our studies, that this segment can actually grow much more and should grow faster also. So just the way when we brought in the MG Hector and we established MG as a mass premium brand in the 10 to 20 lakh bracket with the Hector, we feel that we really can help a lot of people in India to really bring luxury towards them. So we want to make it accessible luxury. Frankly, entry-level luxury cars, the entire experience, the product, etc. I think we can bring much more accessibility to the Indians who are looking at new age experience. And what do I mean by that? They're looking at products which are really high on technology, really high on experience, and the overall look and feel. They are looking at curated experiences as we speak. They are looking at exclusivity of their entire possession that they want to have with themselves. So when you bring all of this together, this is what MG Select will do. It will be based on a platform of sustainability. It will have new energy vehicles only, which would mean electric, plug-in hybrid, and hybrid. It would have various body styles, sedans, vans, SUVs, plus more. These places that we have worked on and are working on, John, are going to be destination for luxury. It would not simply be, you can say, it's just a peer experience center or a show. These are places which will stand for a luxurious and for an exclusive experience. Products, maybe some luxury brand launches, collaboration with luxury brand partnerships to make them the destination of choice. And then we want to really help by giving our customers and upping up our stance. Already MG has been, thanks to all our customers and our team members who really worked hard, and MG has been ranked one on customer service and customer sales for the last 3 years in a row. Build on that platform and take it up one notch higher. Right. So that is where we are saying that MG Select crafted for the select few.
Right. So if we are having a conversation 2 years down the line, you feel how different would MG's portfolio be from now currently, and what sort of partnership?
See, we are working on, as an overall enterprise, we are looking at more and more of new energy vehicles. Right now, our sale right now is about 35% of electric vehicles. With the launch of Windsor, we are looking at taking it up 50% upwards of that. And in the medium term, we are looking at taking it up to almost 70% would be new energy vehicle sales of our total portfolio. One correction also, John, I think when I mentioned we were ranked 1 3 years in a row for sales and service. We were service ranked 1 in JD Power. On sales, we were ranked 1, and when we were ranked 2. So we were, of course, podium holders, but I think factually it was 1 and 2.
Great. Thanks for the clarification. And thanks so much for taking your time out and discussing a lot of things on EV. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Interface Podcast. For more such episodes on technology and innovation, tune in to The Interface on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Do share your comments with us at thehindu.co.in. To keep yourself updated with the latest tech, please go to thehindu.com or follow us on all social media platforms. Thank you.